Hey there! So this video is a pre-recorded panel that I made for the Sims Machinima and Animation Convention in August of 2024. It was broadcast as part of their live event there. So anyway, I just thought that I would share just my segment. It was right at the very tail end of a 3-day event. Anyway, so I created this. They ended up titling my segment something to do with the history of Machinima as regards the Sims games. So a couple corrections. One, I kept referring to Brittanica Dreams as Brittania Dreams. I don't know why, but I did it throughout the video. Every time I mentioned it, I kept saying Brittania. It's Brittanica Dreams. Secondly, I made some comments that kind of implied that there wasn't any such thing as new Machinima made with The Sims 2. And the comments of the people that were attending live kind of exploded at that. There apparently is quite a thriving community of people still making Machinima with The Sims 2, and I just had no idea. So if you get to that point in the video and the hair stands up on the back of your neck, just know that it was just some ignorant old man, and pay it no mind. So anyway, hope you enjoy the video. So I created my first Machinima film in a different century. 1998. So Machinima had been around even before it had that name, Machinima, but it was a lot of work related to playing video games, exploiting video games, and there was some amazing stuff that arose out of that, but it wasn't exactly a nice playing field for someone who just wanted to tell normal stories with normal human characters. And then The Sims came along, and I started seeing what some people were getting out of that game in terms of making movies, and thought, whoa, this is very appealing. Some of the elements that were significant would be built-in camera controls, a very elaborate access to commands and cheats through the console. And then the custom content scene just exploded, and even to this day in The Sims 4, that's a huge part of what drives these unique-looking characters and scenes and environments and stuff, is the custom content community. So yeah, the first film that I decided to undertake in The Sims 2 was going to be kind of a mock public service announcement, the title of which ended up being Male Restroom Etiquette. Think of it like, you know those cards that they used to have in the airplane seats that you'd open them up and it would be like these animated drawings of what to do if the oxygen mask dropped down and stuff like that, the airline safety cards. I always pictured that this is kind of like an animated version of that. So yeah, I created the film. I knew it was funny, but I had no idea that it was going to explode the way it did. And part of the reason that happened was back in that day, YouTube actually had a homepage, like a front page that everybody saw. And not due to any marketing or connections or savvy on my part, just somehow it got noticed by one of those curators for the YouTube homepage and put on the homepage, and I had 1 million views in a day. Like, it was unbelievable. But if you want to see what somebody could really do with The Sims that was beautiful from that era, you look no further than Brittanica Dreams. And this was a production company helmed by 2 women, one of which I knew a little bit better than the other, Michelle. So they created a film called The Snow Witch, amongst many other films that they made, but I feel like this one is just really something extra special. It's just gorgeous. It's this fairy tale with an Eastern origin, wonderfully narrated, and I mean, it's just beautiful, and it holds up pretty well. Brittanica Dreams, they were known in the Machinima community as very beautiful and detailed sets and costumes. Yeah, it's considered a classic. I'm pretty sure it won some awards. I've kind of lost track of what those were, but it's a piece not to miss from that era, that's for sure. Now, kind of on a different end of the spectrum is the third film that I'll mention. It's actually a trio of films called The Fixer. It's very grown up. Is that fair to say? It's politically incorrect. It's got this anti-hero character, Ernest Rent, who is an assassin, but by the end of the 3rd chapter, if you weren't already in his corner, he ends up, his situation is very sympathetic. It's tremendous. The way that the writing is done, it's full of metaphor and turns of phrase, and nothing is really on the nose. Very poetic. Driven largely by narration of the main character, but there are some points where there's actual voiceover, some tremendous voiceover in the 3rd chapter. Yeah, The Fixer is really one to see. Something interesting about both of those films, The Snow Witch and The Fixer, is that the creative leads on those films ended up going to work professionally to do, essentially, to be involved with either with that video games production or with machinima related to that video game. Michelle went to work for BioWare, and the creator of The Fixer became, and is still currently, one of the higher-ups at EA in charge of the Sims games, still to this day. So let's go on to some of your questions here. What drew you to celebrate Sims 2 Machinima's early days? Well, that's a simple one. That's the Sims 2 Machinima that I know. You know, it's not that I haven't watched any made with 3 and 4, but I'm much less familiar with it, and I'm not actively making it with that, because I'm old and that's what I know, okay? Can you share a bit about your background and how it has influenced your project? Well, yeah, I don't have any professional background related to filmmaking, animation, anything like that. I am a true dyed-in-the-wool amateur, and I do it for the love of it. I've been involved with machinima, like I said earlier, for just over 25 years now, on and off, which is amazing. So, yeah, I would say my background is machinima itself. Like, I didn't have one coming into it other than, you know, I was a guy who grew up loving to make movies with his camcorder or record audio dramas on cassette tapes. That hobby goes way, way back. But really, most of my experience is since I got involved with machinima, not before. Since your project focuses on Sims 2, can you share what Sims 2 directors or machinimas have had the most significant impact on your work? Well, I've kind of answered that in the previous segment. If I had to pick 2 directors that influenced me most, it would be these 2. I studied what they did and tried to learn from it and get better from seeing how they did things. Can you walk us through your process of bringing your project from concept to completion? Yeah, I'm a writer at heart, so everything always begins for me with, you know, the written screenplay or story or that kind of thing. I spend a lot of time there. I often spend more time there than I do on the production itself. The production itself just kind of sprouts out of the fertile ground that the good writing, you know, if I can get it to where it's good, the movie just kind of grows out of that naturally, really. It's not that there aren't, you know, skills and craft involved in the making of the movie. Of course there are. But to me, the most challenging part of making a movie isn't how to get the characters to behave or how to pick out the right costume or set. It's making the decisions about what to even show. You know, the director decisions. How should it be captured? How should it be presented? To me, that's the hard part. It's the hardest part to learn, probably the hardest part to teach. Anybody can learn how to manipulate the game or use the different mods or find your way around the world of custom content. Anyone can train themselves to do audio and music better, you know. But actually having the vision and coming up with the idea and then how to execute that idea, that remains the hardest part for me and also the most rewarding, right? What do you hope audiences will take away from this project? Well, I don't know. I hope something more than just nostalgia. I think more important than the fact that these films were made many years ago is to keep in mind that everybody who made these films were not professionals. They were amateurs, just like most of us are. And most of what they learned, they taught themselves. People who knew less than you do, who put the time in to figure things out, you know, created these things. What advice would you give to aspiring machinima creators who are just starting? I kind of covered that in the last one too, didn't I? But it basically, to keep in mind that you can do this, that this is what you're seeking to do is achievable. It's all a matter of just being willing to be teachable, to being willing to learn, being willing to make some mistakes. Not every production that you release needs to be perfect, and frankly, not every production you make is going to be perfect. In fact, probably none of them will, right? None of them are going to be perfect, but just create it, just make it, and then you learn from it, and maybe each one is a little better than the last. But the actual process of making it can be the fulfilling part in this world where it's really, really hard to get eyes on what you've made, and even when you do, there's this feeling that nobody's going to appreciate this as much as I do as the creator. You're probably right. So you better love the process, because there may not be a whole lot of hand clapping when you're done. But that's okay if you love the process of creating it. Are there any directors you would love to collaborate with in the future? You know, there's one My friend Ricky Grove, who I do a podcast with, I've known him for 25 years. We've never actually co-directed, co-produced a film, and I hope that we'll get a chance to do that. What are your thoughts on the current state of Sims 2 Machinima, and where do you see it heading in the future? I don't know, is there current Sims 2 Machinima? There may be, and I'm just ignorant to it. I can't remember the last time I've seen a new Machinima production with it, and why would you when The Sims 4 is around? Do you have any upcoming projects that you're particularly excited about? Yes. None that I'm going to go into detail here on. If you'd like to see more on that, check out my YouTube channel, or I've got a Patreon where I go behind the scenes. That's where I talk about that stuff. So, can you share any insights or lessons you've learned from past projects that have influenced your approach to creating Machinima? Prioritize finishing the project over every single little detail being perfect. And I'm not saying lower your standard, but the more you do this, you're going to get better at getting near perfect results with less effort. But the tendency with perfectionism is it can really be an enemy, because you'll get so self-critical that you just decide maybe this isn't even good enough to put out there at all. That's a deadly trap. Finishing is important. There's a bit of an endorphin rush from actually completing and releasing a film that you don't want to go too long as a creator depriving yourself of that. Hey, thanks for having this old man on your show. It's really cool to be a part of this, and I hope this was interesting. Thank you.